frankly, to a fault. And that's always been, like, since I learned about that startup. Same with Foursquare, right? I wanted to do something that fundamentally changed my life. And when you actually, like, have that conviction in something and you speak to the founders about that, they believe that shit. Right? They believe it. And they believe it because it's true, right? I'm not being facetious about it. Like, it's true. When I speak with conviction, people believe what I'm saying because I fundamentally believe it to be true. And I think that's what happened with Twitter and Foursquare as well.
And even as an intern, you were that bold with your ideas. You go talk to Ed Williams and say, hey, I think we should be doing this differently.
And there was no other alternative, right? And for something that was going to be as lucrative as a Twitter, you got to go straight to the top, man. And for him to see that conviction, I think is incredibly important. And if I'm looking at any intern that wants to be a part of my company, I look for that same authenticity, that same conviction. So.
Definitely. And then you were at Twitter for a year, still in business school at the time?
It was about 7 months, and then that summer I had an internship at Boston Consulting Group.
Okay.
And I had to go. I was actually going to renege on them, and then Stanford was like, don't do that. So I was supposed to be with them for 10 weeks. I negotiated to be with them for about 5 weeks. I was going to go back to Twitter for the rest of my internship, and then this company called Foursquare just popped up in my purview.
Where did you see Foursquare? It was on TechCrunch or?
Yeah, so it was a TechCrunch article. Foursquare was 3 months old at the time. So they had launched at South by Southwest. It was just two of the founders, Dennis and Levine, and I knew I wanted to be a part of that company. That was like the perfect example of something that made me do things that I wouldn't have thought I would have done otherwise, right? So early days at Foursquare, we had like these badges, these mayorships, all that stuff, right? And I'll never forget, they had this gym rat badge. You had to like check in at the gym 10 times in order to kind of unlock this badge. And it was the first time in my life that like there's this digital asset getting me out of bed on a rainy day to go to the gym. Like, what was that, right? And I knew I had to be a part of that if they can get me to kind of have that level of conviction for something like that.
Do you think that process still works to this day? Like, let's say 2-3 years ago when Snapchat first came out, you could just email the founder or the founding team, and they're still that receptive to new people?
Snapchat was a Snapchat 4 years ago.
Right.
So, when I kind of reached out to Dennis and Levine, Foursquare had 8,000 users, right? No one was paying them any attention. So there's something to be said, at least in my approach, where it's like, you got good ideas for them. I wanted it so bad that I was willing to work for them for free, even without their knowing. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's an important nuance, right? Because it's like, if Dennis and Levine were like, no, we don't need you right now. I love the company so much that I just wanted it to succeed, that I would have kept working with them. And kind of my view of the world is, if you're willing to work for free, you're willing to work for free in a world where they don't even know about it just to advance their business, and they still don't want to hire you, then you probably shouldn't be working at that company. You know what I'm saying? And I've been very fortunate that they were willing to give me that chance.
It also goes to say that you have a good eye for picking value. And you could have picked any of the hundreds of startups at that time, but Foursquare and Twitter are one of the two that are still around today. How did you know that these companies were going to be as big as they were? Or
I had no idea. I just knew it was changing my life. And I felt like if I was going to join this kind of risky startup thing anyway, unless you say there's a high likelihood things will fail, I will have at least spent 2 years of my life making my life better. Right? Like think about that for a second, right? I think a lot of people are fearful of getting into the startup thing. First of all, startups do pay pretty well. Secondly, it kind of pushes you to do something that's uniquely different.
You're welcome.
It stretches you, right? So I knew I had to be a part of it. Like I had to be a part of it. And my view, and I get a lot of kind of inquiry from a lot of people asking me for advice about this stuff. Like, how'd you find Twitter? How'd you find Foursquare? And I tell folks, like, just look on your phone, right? The first screen of your phone. What are the apps that you're using that none of your friends are using? That's a pretty good filter for your own personal conviction, right? And usually it's worked for me a couple times, and I think it works for a lot of people.
And then for Foursquare,
I'm sorry. Yeah, and here's the thing that's really important about that. It allows me to identify things well before anybody else does, right? Just because I'm a user of it, I love it, like I want to kind of promote it, I want to push it, I want it to succeed. So that's a filter that will kind of remain unchanged with me.
Becoming an early adopter, or just be looking at life as an early adopter.
Well, it's not even looking at it as an early adopter. It's like I would have never known if Foursquare had 1 million users or 8,000. They just happened to have 8,000 at the time, but I just loved the product, right? Like I just needed the product, It had nothing to do with popularity or anything like that. Like, Foursquare's not popular. It wasn't. It became popular, fortunately. But I just wanted to make my life better for the time that I was going to be a part of that company.
Product is very important, especially at the early stages.
Product's the only thing. It's at late stages, middle stages, early stages, before you have an idea, product is the only thing that matters.
And at Foursquare at that time, you were on the BizDev team. How did your experience there differ than what you experienced at Twitter?
Well, first of all, I was being paid. So that helped.
No, that's right.
So at Foursquare, at Twitter, I was kind of more of an intern. So I was leading a team of like 3 other business school students to focus on ways to help merchants understand how to use the platform in new, innovative ways. So when I joined Foursquare, I felt that was my opportunity to actually get in early on something and actually guide it in the way that I hope. Right?
No
at
problem.
Twitter, it was already up to 1 million users at the time. Foursquare is 8,000. And we were working on something that was completely new. Right? And the thing that was really appealing to me about that, and this is how it actually played out over time, is that it allowed us to compete with people 30 years our senior, right? Because nobody knew about this industry at all. And there was something that was fun about that and exciting, and fortunately they gave me the opportunity to pursue it.
And how long were you at Foursquare for?
I was at Foursquare for 3 years, and then I joined Internships and Harvard.
Okay, so towards the end of your career at Foursquare, in the back of your head, were you thinking, all right, now I think I've had enough experience working as an employee, it's now time to kind of start my own thing?
Yeah, I'm a terrible employee. I mean, I've gotten fired or quit the job that I had before, kind of like Foursquare, right? And there's something to be said about that, and I think it's kind of my itch to just create. I have a philosophy on like how to build businesses, and kind of some businesses that I was a part of just wasn't penetrating in the way that I would have hoped, right? So I felt, and this kind of stemmed back all the way from Wall Street, right? I was a victim of very bad culture, and I knew I wanted to be creative or great one. And I always had that itch, always had that itch, always had that itch. And with Foursquare, I bled Foursquare blue. I love that company. I love everything that we did at that company. But I felt like I did everything I could do for the company. Right? Like I was there, I took us from 0 merchants to over 1 million, 0 brands on the platform to tens of thousands, 1 employee to 150. And I knew I just wanted to go out and build something more ambitious. And I did.
Sometimes it's important to know when to leave.
Yeah, I mean, it's incredibly important.
And then after that, you went directly to Anderson Horowitz as entrepreneur in residence.
Yeah.
How did that connection come about?
Yeah, so around that time, I was getting offers from a few venture capital firms to be entrepreneur in residence with. Now, the way entrepreneur in residence is defined out in Silicon Valley, there are a couple ways. Number one, some people will join the venture capital firm and help the venture capital firm with deal sourcing, deal review, meeting entrepreneurs, and all that stuff. And I knew if I were going to do that, I didn't want to be distracted at all. My true end game was to go out and start a company. So I said no deal sourcing, no deal review, none of that stuff. And Ben Horowitz, at the time, he said, come spend 6 to 9 months with us to figure out what you want to do, right? And today, this is probably one of the best jobs I've ever had. I just got paid to think of ideas every single day. And fortunately for me, I got to choose the pitches that I wanted to go see, right? I got to choose the deal review meetings that I wanted to be part of and understand how these partners invest in it. So he said, spend 6 to 9 months with us. I spent all 9. And unfortunately, 7 months into it, I figured out this idea for Walker.
For Walker & Company, was that something you had struggled with growing up as a teen, as far as black men's healthcare? Yeah. Yeah. So when you talk about authenticity, this is the one thing that I've had to deal with my entire life, right? 31 years of existence, I know this product better than anyone, right? I say I struggled with kind of coming up with this idea. I go back and forth with Ben Horowitz all the time on it because I was trying to build a bank. I was trying to fix childhood obesity. I spent 3 months working on an idea to fix freight and trucking in the country, only to realize that I wasn't going to be the best person in the world to solve those problems. Like, what the hell do I know about freight and trucking? Right? It doesn't make any sense. And 7 months into it, Ben would always push me. He'd say, Tristan, what's the one thing that you believe that few people on earth believe to be true? And certainly Silicon Valley. And for me, I had 2. And that's when I knew I had to start this. The first belief really was this idea around culture. I have this fundamental belief, still to this day, that all global culture is led by American culture, which is led by black culture in the U.S., right? Food, music, dance, etc.
Come on.
And a big frustration of mine is my living in the earliest adopting region in the world, in Silicon Valley, and it's knowing very little about the early stuff in culture, right? Like that Discord doesn't make any sense to me. Second view of the world that I have, and I joke about this all the time. So if you've heard it a bunch, I apologize. But I always talk about kind of this experience of going to CVS or Walgreens or Dwayne Reed or whatever. Right? Having to go to aisle 42, right? It's the ethnic aisle, right? But then, like, you're like, where's the ethnic aisle? And it's all the way in the back, and it's always on like the right side, right across from like snacks. Then I have to reach the bottom of that shelf for a package that's dirty. And then there's always a photo on it of like a 65-year-old bald black dude in a towel drinking a cognac while like petting a tiger on the package. Right? I assume that I should buy that product. Like that shit is stupid. It's dumb. Especially considering a couple things. Number one, how much money we spend on that stuff. How culturally influential demographic we are. And you loop in Latino Asian consumers. We're the majority of the country in 20, 30 years. We're the majority of the world right now.
Yep. Yeah.
That's the problem. Yep. So I was like, all right. What's going to make me fundamentally the best person in the world to solve that problem? Number one is the identification of that problem. And then two, leverage all I've learned in Silicon Valley and tech to build it from the ground up. And you know, that was the most freeing kind of month of my life because it was the first time I ever felt like I was the best person in the world to solve something.
Yeah, definitely. And my next question, it ties in to what you just said there. So at Andreessen Horowitz, or even talking to any investors, they probably don't identify with this problem so much. How do you pitch to them the influence and the range of the problem that you're trying to tackle for a person that has no idea what the pains are for shaving food?
The crappy part is you don't, right? You just hope for the best. I was just at this kind of fast company panel, and I talked about this experience I had. It was the first pitch that I ever had. And it was with a woman in Silicon Valley investor. She's great, love her, right? I was nervous. My first pitch, I'm like, man, I'm asking this woman for $2.5 million, right? Like, what should I do? And I have a slide, and it was like slide 10 or something, and it had Proactive on one side, right? So the acne system. And then it had Bevel, our first shaving brand, Razor solver brand, on the right side, right? So she looked at me, and this face is so like in my brain right now. She said, Tristan, I'm not sure issues related to razor bumps and shaving irritation are as big a societal issue as issues related to acne. Now, I mean, you say, ooh, but like, I kind of get it, right? Because acne is just something that everyone talks about. But what I don't get is her laziness. And she let her kind of lack of context cloud her judgment. And all that she had to do is get on the phone with 10 black men. And 8 to 9 of them would have said this is the worst thing ever. That's it. That would have taken 6 minutes, right? And she didn't do it. And that's fine. But that's the stuff that like we have to deal with, right? Where it's like, I can tell you charismatically about the market opportunity and all that stuff, but I can't convince you out of your own laziness, right? To acquire the context necessary to see that this is a good opportunity.
Yeah, that's good.
On that note, we want to open up the floor to any questions. I know quite a few of you have some.